What is the natural state of man? It is perhaps one of the most asked questions brought upon by philosophers alongside the existence of God and the origins of life itself. And just like these other questions, many thinkers have offered their own answers to this question. What is man when you strip him of all doctrines, beliefs, societal, and civilizational influences? Some have claimed the man begins as a blank slate, the tabula rasa, shaped entirely by experience, culture, and upbringing. But if you were to ask someone like Thomas Hobbes, he would tell you the man by nature is in a constant state of war, where life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In this condition, man is driven by an instinct of self-preservation and power, making war the only constant. But if you were to ask Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he would say the complete opposite, believing the man by nature is simple, content, with minimal needs, only corrupted by society, civilization, and private property, which induce vices like greed, jealousy, and inequality, which end our innate goodness. Aristotle, on the other hand, would say that man by nature is a political animal, and the fact that man has the capacity for language is a sign that man is not meant to live in isolation but in a community. And anyone who can must either be a beast or a god. But today I'm not here to talk about any of these answers, but what I believe to be one of the most interesting answers to this question. And it was not brought up by a philosopher, but by a fiction writer, Robert E. Howard. Howard believed that barbarism was the natural state of man, and he didn't play with this idea more than with his most popular character, Conan the Barbarian. Conan is a barbarian, and most of his conflicts are with evils that are brought by civilization. In Howard's world, it is civilization that corrupts. It is the politicians who disguise their greed and power hungriness under the name of democracy. It is the men in suit and ties who act on their base human desires but put a mask over it and call themselves civilized. For Conan, on the other hand, he wears no mask, does not attempt to make himself seem moral. In fact, he has the same desires and instincts as the men in suits, except he does not deny or try to hide them. Conan lives openly through strength, passion, and instinct. Conan never pretends that his appetites are anything but his own. For Howard, civilization breeds hypocrisy and decadence. Conan's refusal to disguise his true intentions make him honestly dangerous, but at the same time liberating. He is violent, but he does not lie about it. He does not pretend his sword serves a higher purpose, or that his killing is sanctioned by the gods. In a sense, he is the kind of raw honesty that can never be tolerated or could never coexist with a civilization as we know it. But before we continue, if you guys are enjoying the video so far and would like to support me and my channel, the best way you guys can do that is by buying some merch at Fighting Philosophy, link in the description, or by subscribing to my Patreon. I don't have anything on there yet, but I'm definitely working on some stuff for there. Now, back to the video. But if barbarism is the natural state of man, then why does he turn to civilization? Although Howard himself never attempted to explain himself, we can look at history and philosophy to find the answers. Civilization is not born from virtue, but from necessity. Among equal powers, endless raiding and bloodshed have become too costly. When the sword can no longer decide everything so cheaply, men began to invent morals, contracts, and diplomacy. These not being born from a place of overflowing vitality, but from caution or cowardice. At its core, civilization is simply a truce, a mask, that restrains violence when direct force becomes too costly. Ancient Greek historian Thucydides, in my opinion, best illustrates an example of this brutal phenomenon in the Melian dialogue, when Athens, at the height of its power, besieged the weaker city-state of Melos, which pleaded for neutrality and accused Athens of treating them unfairly in the midst of the Peloponnesian War. The Athenians simply replied with the following: "The standard of justice depends on the equality of power to compel, and that in fact the strong do what they have the power to do, and the weak accept what they must." This line alone tears away the veil away from diplomacy. Behind the species of justice and the laws of nations lies nothing more than the balance of power. You see this not just in nations, but in individuals also. It is no secret that the shakers and movers of the world more often than not lack a moral compass, or at least have a very different one than you and I. Politicians commit some of the most heinous crimes against humanity and go unpunished despite having incriminating levels of evidence that prove they are guilty. Only when rivals of equal power rise, or when they no longer serve a purpose, are they suddenly found guilty. Civilization does not bring an end to the barbarian, but rather teaches him how to lie. The king who thirsts for conquest proclaims he is spreading justice. The priest who lusts for gold insists he serves the gods. The merchant who cheats through contracts swears he's only being fair. The politician who craves power disguises it as duty to the people. Their desires are no different from Conan's. Wealth, power, love, victory. The difference is that Conan admits it while they lie. For Howard, this is the real poison of civilization. Not that it makes men weak, but that it makes them hypocrites. Civilization does not tame our instincts, it teaches us how to cloak them. It gives us rituals, laws, and moral language to make greed look like generosity, to make violence look like justice, to make decadence look like virtue. And this is not confined to the passages of fantasy. Look around today. The CEO who lectures about morality while exploiting labor overseas, the politician who condemns spies on television only to be caught in a scandal months later, or years later even. The mask of civilization is alive and well, and it works only so long as no one rips it away. Conan terrifies the civilized man not because he's more violent, but because he strips that mask away. He slays without excuse, steals without justification, and loves without apology. He makes no claim that his appetites are holy or his violence is righteous. His honesty is brutal, but also liberating. In him, there is no corruption, because there is no disguise. Howard did not just see barbarism and civilizations as opposites locked in tension. He saw them as stages in a cycle. Civilization is not permanent, it rises, flourishes, decays, and eventually collapses, returning again to barbarism. In his words, barbarism is the natural state of mankind. Civilization is unnatural, it is a whim of circumstance, and barbarism must always ultimately triumph. The philosopher Oswald Spengler echoed this in his monumental work, The Decline of the West. He argued that history does not move in a straight line of progress as we're often thought, but in recurrent cycles of growth and decay. Young civilizations blaze with vitality, their art soars, their religion inspires, their heroes embody boldness and vision, but as they age, that spirit withers. Culture becomes bureaucracy, faith becomes ritual, art becomes entertainment. What was once alive grows rigid, rationalistic, and lifeless. In Spengler's terms, culture turns into civilization, a husk of what once was. History offers plenty of evidence. The Roman Empire fell not to philosophers or laws, but to Germanic tribes who still lived with raw vigor of barbarism. The Bronze Age world collapsed with the mysterious sea peoples swept across the Mediterranean, toppling great kingdoms. The Aztec Empire, rich with ritual and hierarchy, fell swiftly before a handful of Spaniard conquistadors and their allies. Again and again, the pattern repeats. What is strong becomes soft, and what is soft is devoured. Howard distilled this truth into a single image, Conan himself. Wherever Conan goes, he crashes into decadent kingdoms, already rotting beneath their glittered thrones. He is not just a man, but the living embodiment of history's eternal return, the barbarian at the gate, reminding us that no empire, however mighty, escapes the wheel. As I finish writing this, the world feels shaken. Violent events are breaking in the news, and the way people are reacting has made me reconsider parts of what I had planned to say. But even now, I still believe man is far too complex to be reduced to a single label: barbarian, civilized, political, or anything else. People can embody many natures at once. I've known men who are raw and untamed, and others who can never be barbaric in any sense. And here's a point worth considering. If barbarism were truly man's most natural state, then why do so many soldiers return from war, scarred with trauma? Why do we even have a word like PTSD? If violence were as natural as eating or sleeping, it wouldn't shatter people's minds the way it often does. The fact that war wounds a soul suggests that even if barbarism lies within us, it is not the whole story. And I don't think Howard, through Conan, was trying to suggest that all of us should live by the sword and settle every problem in blood. His critique isn't aimed at everyone. It is aimed at those in power, the kings, priests, and politicians, who condemn ordinary men for showing the same instincts that once carried humanity through its harshest years, while indulging in those instincts themselves, often to a far greater degree. That's why Conan matters. He isn't a model for how we should live, but a mirror that exposes the deceptions of those who rule us. He reminds us that beneath the robes and speeches, the appetites of man remain the same, and yet I refuse to believe we are doomed to spin on a wheel forever, trapped between barbarism and decadence. Man carries a capacity for cruelty and corruption, but also for creation, vision, and greatness. We are destined for more than this cycle, if only we dare to strip away the masks and live in truth, and strive for the greatest potential we can all achieve.